All right, it's another one of these Homeric Rhapsody things. The story is of Achilles sacking Eëtion's Thebe, and there's a whole main story about that, but we're currently on the side story of Patroclus and Idomeneus taking on a army of, Thracians and Cilicians that are trying to reinforce Troy, and so they're on that, duty, and Patroclus took most of the Myrmidons, and Achilles is going more or less alone with, I think, Eudorus, his captain of the Myrmidons, and a token force of soldiers. But we're currently on the thing with Patroclus and Idomeneus, and the gods Hermes and Hephaestus made a bet about who would prove the most valorous of the two of them. And actually, I can't remember who was supporting which, but I'll make that up, I guess, from here. And then there was also a kind of a mirrored bet that's happening on Earth, where Patroclus and Idomeneus themselves were sort of doing like a Legolas and Gimli type thing, where they're betting who's going to take down the most people on the opposing armies. Here we go. Oh, and just for full disclosure, because I always try to say, I almost never come up with anything at all before these episodes. I just try to let the muse speak through me. But for this one, I did come up with a very small concept of that the two gods with the bets would fight to support the guy that they're supporting, to try and tilt the scales of their own bet, and that maybe one of the gods fighting for the Trojans would say, hey, wait a minute, they're both killing, reinforcing Trojan armies, so I'm gonna fight for the other side. So it's a very loose thing that I was thinking of potentially doing. And such was the valor that was shown by the two great captains, him of Phthia, Patroclus, son of Menoetius, and that great war captain Idomeneus, son of Deucalion, or whoever Idomeneus' father was. They fought hard on those plains outside Troy, taking down many a Thracian and Cilician, and the two of them exactly at odds, with Idomeneus having taken down more of the common throng, but several more, and Patroclus having taken the fewer, but of the more value, with more beautiful armor that would be stripped and given much glory to his person. And such did the two soldiers compete in a friendly competition between them as they cut down these lesser forces. For though they were outnumbered, they took many a head and many a suit of mail besides. And up on Olympus, the two gods who had spoken their favor for these mere mortals, Hermes, supporting that son of Menoetius, Patroclus, and Hephaestus, the fire god of the bellows, who had put his force behind Idomeneus, son of Crete, off that island where bred the Minotaur. And so the two of them, each in his heart, had a plan to support his favorite. And Hermes stepped out of the halls of Olympus, having taken his winnings at knuckle bones, and brought his enchanted bones with him, which, unknown to Hephaestus, had been weighted to support his cause, but not weighted so much that they would always turn up a win for Hermes. Such was the cunning of this one. And he took his winnings with him, all that nectar and ambrosia which he stored in his well-built golden hall, cast with bronze, and with doors and locking mechanisms of pure silver, made by the fire god himself. He put them in a great chest, all these winnings that he had won, and beside them, in a sable bag, he placed those 2 weighted dice, which he had won in a gamble with Thanatos, that god who brought souls to the underworld, their duties having allowed them to cross paths once or twice in the millennia that brought them such necessity since man was created. And Hermes, no longer burdened with those prizes, cast himself down to earth, taking on the form of Thracians, those who were in front of Patroclus' Myrmidons, and causing panic and rout those 2 sisters, sons or daughters of Ares, to come forth to the battlefield, and bringing in speech unknown to those Myrmidons, but of that wild tongue of Thrace, saying to his men, "We cannot stand against these Myrmidons, black-armored as they are, not with the forces we have here, and not with these inferior weapons and shields. These wicker-crested shields are no match for those great round targes of the Myrmidons, their swords cut through like they were nothing but twigs, which they are little more than. So we shall turn, and we shall flee, and this I deem best of all that we could do." And though the captains tried to rouse the Thracians, many heard his calls, and many took these suggestions of rout and panic, and those 2 brothers stood on the heads of many as they turned their backs, and thus were cut down all the easier. For a soldier who turns his back in battle not only loses his honor, but is more like to lose his life and those of the soldiers surrounding him, to whom he has a responsibility. And thus did Hermes tilt those scales of the great wager between him and the fire god. But up in heaven, he who runs the bellows, the great architect Hephaestus, was not without his own wiles, for when Hermes had left the chamber, he had it in his mind that there might be some foul play, and he, the great fire god, wrought a great work among his forges. And thus began the 2 weighted wagers of Hermes and Hephaestus. All right, that was kind of a cool one. I liked that episode, or that piece, because usually when the gods are fighting one way or the other in the Iliad, it's that they're helping the army that they want to win, or the army that they want to lose, such as when any number of times, Poseidon rallying the Achaeans, or Athena telling Pandarus to shoot Menelaus because she wants him to cause the war to start back up, and she's not on the side of the Trojans, which Pandarus is. But I thought it would be interesting to have it where this wager between Hephaestus and Hermes, they're both rooting for the Achaean side, but they're just trying to help a specific contingent of them. And so Hermes is speaking in the language of the Thracians, so that the Cilicians that Hephaestus is supporting would not understand, and causing just the Thracians to retreat. And then we'll see what Hephaestus does in response. But I thought it would be interesting to have that wager happen between 2 gods who are both fighting for the same side. And I'm kind of thinking this whole thing is kind of interesting because the war hasn't turned so brutal yet, although there's a lot of people getting cut down right here, but it's not such a bloodbath like it is in the Iliad, because it's still in the end of the first year into the second year of the Trojan War, and there are 9 years, or there would be 8 years between now and when the Iliad takes place. And at that point, it's at a real tipping point for everybody, which is why Achilles gets so, enraged, and why all this stuff happens. So I thought it'd be interesting if, like, the gods aren't necessarily wasting their time taking a part in the battle to turn the scales of the battle yet, but they're just kind of playing around at this point, which I thought was kind of cool. And an interesting way to allow the story to evolve into what we know as the Iliad, where they're just all out, literally fighting each other, in addition to fighting the, helping the soldiers. Yeah, I kind of liked that. I put a thing in there too that Hermes was actually cheating against Hephaestus, with like weighted knuckle bones that he had won in a bet with Thanatos, which I just thought was an interesting thing, because he's supposed to be the god of cunning, and it's just I thought it was a nice little moment. Yeah, I don't know. It was just it was the thing that came to me. I thought it was fun. I haven't come up with what Hephaestus is going to do yet. I had him go to his forge, and we'll see if he builds something that, does something to help his horse in the race. But we'll see how that goes on the next one. Good, I'm happy with that. Again, this is all a rough draft of the first draft of this story, so I'm not really trying to make it very good yet. It's very stilted, and it's not based on a lot of stuff. It's not based on the existing Iliad. It's set in the world of the existing Iliad, but it's like, it's all coming off the top of my head, so you have to assume that there's going to be a lot of rough things until it gets, reiterated, and then you come up with good stuff. Writing is rewriting, as they say. So we'll just keep going with it and see what happens.